Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Mike,
I'm Brian.
and this is another beautiful episode of Hoopin with Mike and Brian. And today, hey man, we got a little special thing going on today. We got a little special guest today. Brian, you
Hey,
wanna
yeah, we
take?
got a special guest, and I won't spoil it. I'll let him take it from here. But Corey, would you like to introduce yourself?
I think you just did. I'm Core. I'm
That's it.
Brian's father, and I love you guys. Your Hoops podcast. It's awesome. And Brian and I argue consistently about all things NBA, and he thought it would be fun to have me on, and I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have like any favorite players, favorite teams? Like, what you root for?
Well, unfortunately, I'm a Knicks fan, so that's
Oof.
difficult to say the least. Yeah, but part of that is like you got to remember that back in like the late '80s, mid to late '80s, early '90s, in the Ewing days, that was it. Does not get any better than that. They didn't win a championship, but my attitude towards sports is sometimes it's not the kill, it's the thrill of the chase. And it was back in the heyday of the NBA. It was a lot of fun times. Watching games, listening to games, and back then games, because you didn't get every game on TV. Those games were when they were on, like outside of the New York area, when you get to see other teams play, you never missed it. Like Thursday nights, yeah, NBA night on, I forget what channel it was on, but you just never missed those nights. It was so much fun to watch.
For sure, for sure. I
I
mean,
love it.
I'll say my experience as a Knicks fan has been a lot different than his. He had. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think you were a Knicks fan when they won the Well, you were like what, like three when they won the championship?
No, I was, yeah, back then it was 73 their last one. I think
Uh,
it was the year. And yeah, it was well before my time for sure. But
yeah,
I mean, those teams were capable of winning a championship. They ran into like kind of a buzz saw, with Jordan, of course. And
mhm.
then you had like the Rockets had those couple of years where they couldn't be beat with Olajuwon, and going through the East was difficult because they always seem to meet the Pacers along the way, and those
Yep.
are always like
Mhm.
really difficult, because most of the time the Knicks won those, but those were like very like nerve wracking games, but fun.
Of
Yeah.
course. Yeah, those
Um,
are those are great years, man. I just putting in like perspective. I mean, my Heat probably weren't a team yet, just yet. I know it came in like
Right?
the 80s, 90s. So, I mean, just talking on my dad's behalf, my dad was a big he grew up in LA, so he's a big Showtime Laker fan. So obviously 80s was like prime for him. It was like back and
Yeah.
forth with the Lakers and Celtics and stuff like that. Even though that came to about an end when like the 90s were the Knicks. I mean, you have the Bulls, you have the Rockets and all that type of stuff. But I mean, nowadays I feel so privileged watching NBA now. How hard it was back in the day, or even just watching it now. I feel like I could just turn on my laptop and watch a game right now if I wanted to.
yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
that's the best. Like any game you want to see, you can get access to.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
like back then, it wasn't like that. It was Sunday afternoons. Sometimes like and me and my friends, we'd always get together and watch those games, and it was always an event. Whereas now it's just like it's almost pedestrian, where like you feel
Mhm.
like I don't have to watch this game because I'll just see tomorrow night's game. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
they sort of all they nowadays all those games sort of mash into one another. But back then, like there was just so many, and because the league wasn't watered down like it is today, like there was so many good teams back then, so
Oh
many
yeah.
good
Mhm.
players to watch. Like if you think about like if you ever went back and looked at like I love on like basketballreference.com, I don't know if you've ever been on there, but if you ever go on that website, like you can go look up any team in the history of the NBA and see who was
Mm-hmm.
on it. And if you look back at say like back in the mid '80s, the Bucks couldn't ever get past the Sixers or the Celtics
Yep.
in the playoffs. But if you look at like that roster for the Bucks, they had Sidney Moncrief, Hall of Famer. They had Ricky Pierce, Paul Pressey, Terry Cummings. I mean, just monsters of the game. Who, if you put those guys on a team now, they wouldn't lose, in my opinion. But
Mhm.
back then, they were just not quite as talented as the Celtics or the Sixers, so they could never
Yeah.
get out of the East.
Yeah, that brings me to one thing I wanted to, I know we've talked about it, but for the people, listening, um, like are there any guys like in today's game where you think they could be dropped into that era, like that 80, 90, 80s to 90s era where like you feel like they would like really like, make an impact, or like do you think they could not handle that physicality?
No, you know what it is like. There isn't to be fair. Like guys my age probably or from that era think like the NBA. A lot of the NBA players today are soft, and I think that's true to some degree because you see guys get fouled hard, and the whining to the officials and the complaining and the hands up and the and they just sometimes don't play. It's
Hmm.
like they want to
Yeah.
call and they want to go to the foul line on every possession. And I think that most of the top guys would have no trouble like shifting their game a little bit to play in that. I mean, you see the highlights of those Detroit Piston teams that won the championship. Like those guys were thugs. Like
Hmm.
those guys were like would Bill Laimbeer is the biggest one of them all. That guy was the dirtiest player in the NBA, and he would hammer guys. He'd throw them to the ground. They weren't even trying to make a basketball play on the ground. And yeah, sometimes you see highlights of Jordan or Bird getting up and wanted to tear somebody apart, but
Yeah.
for the most part, they were just trying to hurt you. And I think like when you think of Jordan pre-championship, like there's an evolution to like how he went from like great talent, becoming a great player. Then they were physically beating him up those teams,
Hmm.
and him just being smart about in the offseason going and doing the work, getting tougher, getting stronger, and coming back and just not letting anything get in the way, like having the will to win
Yeah.
is probably
Hmm.
almost the best way to describe Jordan. How he wasn't going to lose, and he wasn't going to let anything stand in his way. But so I definitely think a lot of all the top guys would have no trouble playing in that
Hmm.
era. I think that if they expect to play the way they play now, where you almost can't get touched without a
Yeah.
foul being called, to back then we're like hand checking, arm bars,
Yeah.
anything impeding driving to the rim. You could use your hands to do that. Where nowadays, and if you look at like I don't know what the numbers are, but if you look at like how teams score nowadays, seeing teams score like in the
Oh yeah.
118
Mhm.
to 130 is not unusual. Whereas back then, sometimes you were winning scoring like 82.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I know I was always gonna say like, I mean, obviously Jordan was way before my time, but like the way like the greats like talk about him, like it seems like he was really like I feel like the way people view Jordan is not how like people view LeBron. Like it seems like there's that real like fear factor of Jordan, which I feel like nowadays
Oh, yeah.
like everyone's like friends now. It's like I don't think anyone's like really scared of to go at LeBron. Whereas Jordan, like Allen Iverson said it, like Kobe, like they literally said like it just looked like a Jesus out there, you know?
Yeah, it looked like Jesus was walking on water, man. Like it's crazy when I think about it because just what Mr. Gore brought up, I think about the fact that like even though yes, I think Michael Jordan's great and I think he's one of the goats. I know that's probably gonna raise some hairs, but I definitely gotta say like it's crazy to think like nobody really like talks about his greatness evolving because what he got drafted 86 I believe and there was
Mhm.
4 or 5 years of him losing in the first round to like the Pistons to
The
I believe
Celtics.
the Celtics.
Yeah.
Like there was a
yeah.
time where he had to get over a hump and people are like oh like they like people don't pay attention to that. It's like I feel like people need to pay attention to stuff like that because I mean that's what happens because I don't even remember who was on that team starting. I remember they had like I can't even I'm thinking of like the last dance right now, trying to remember like
Yeah.
what players they had that were even like
Mhm.
a nice little duo with Michael Jordan from that 86 to like 90s until like Scottie Pippen joined the team and they started making moves to
Yeah.
actually be a finals team. So it's pretty crazy
Well,
nowadays,
yeah,
but
it is. But if you remember, obviously what you said is totally true. Like Pippen, and it's hard to imagine like when people talk about the all-time greats, like Pippen was sort of like Jordan in the sense that he could do it all, and he played both ends of the floor. Where what was great about Jordan was that he was not only the best offensive player of that time, he was the best defensive player of that time. And maybe Pippen was second in the league all those years playing both ends of the floor. But I think if I remember correctly, when Jordan got drafted, he got drafted with a bunch of bums.
Yes.
Yeah, that
I
was like
mean,
Sam Bowie,
when you
right?
think about yeah, well, when you think about how all these guys who got drafted, who you got to be a pretty bad team to get like the top 3 pick,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And when he got drafted, he came in there with just guys who were just a bunch of bums, as far as
Mhm.
I'm concerned. And so you're starting to build a team from that year going forward. Okay.
Yeah.
So like if you look at like some of these guys, like the one year I remember he had like Dave Corzine. I think Dave Corzine was like the big.
Mhm.
Um, they had George Gervin one year at the end of his career. Um, they had, I think, Oakley. Charles Oakley had just like joined the team, maybe like the year or two after Jordan was drafted, and and back then you had to have an enforcer.
Yeah.
And so some of these guys, like you probably never heard of, but then they as the organization evolved, you kind of get an idea for what the kind of players you have to have. You get lucky a little bit with the Pippen draft pick,
Mhm.
and you have all these guys start coming in, and they had like what they had a couple of big. They had Bill Cartwright and Bill Wennington as bigs who were just not great bigs, but you didn't have to be. You just had to rebound and score 6 or 8 a game. You
Uh-huh.
know, so I think like as that evolved, they were smart about the type of players they brought in to play around them. And then if you watch like the Jordan documentary, you kind of got the idea as good players started coming and as his game started evolving, they start Jordan really starts running that team.
Yeah.
At practices and things like that. Like because the best teams are always teams led by the players,
Mhm.
always, and that's not my rule. That's nature's rule.
Yeah, no, for sure. That kind of segues into like what else, the other things we want to talk about. So like I know we talked about a little outside of the podcast, but like what do you think like separates like MJ from like, a lot of people like want to compare the LeBron. Some people argue, LeBron's better, but like what separates him from like really like from the rest is what do you think?
Well, so I think if you look at the NBA, like if you look at basketball in a general sense of like the best players, like when you get to the NBA, most of those guys, all those guys are like athletic anomalies. You know what
Mhm.
I
Yep.
mean? Like a guy built like LeBron to play basketball is crazy.
Mhm.
And as big as he is, it's how fast he is, it's how high he jumps, it's how hard he plays on defense, it's how he shares the ball. Like LeBron's certainly absolutely a complete player. Of course, he's one of the top couple guys to ever play the game. But I don't think like I think if you put Jordan in this era where like you couldn't touch him, he'd be like a 15 sorry, not a 15, a 50-point score. And I don't think it would even be that hard for him to do that.
Mhm.
Like he could get up, he could jump over defenders to shoot jump shots, he could get to the rim. And remember, like back then, I don't know, I would bet if you look it up, he averaged like taking maybe not even three threes a game.
Yeah.
But he was the kind of guy that would go out, and as the three becomes more prevalent in the game as it is today, where guys work on it, there's a lot, probably the best ones are taking and making like 300-400 shots a day at least when they're not playing. He would have worked on that and got better at it,
Yeah.
and
And
that would have just
yeah.
That's
only
true.
enhanced his scoring.
Yeah, and like one other point I'd like to bring up in terms of like that kind of debate is like, um, like Jordan never really had to like leave Chicago to win. Obviously, they got the lucky with that Pippen draft pick, whatever. But like I mean, if you just look at it, like LeBron did have to leave. He had to form a team in Miami to get his like first couple rings. So that's what I also don't like about today's game is where like players have to like team up with like like other greats in order to win. Where Jordan like stayed. Obviously, he went to Washington at the end of his career, but Jordan kind of stayed loyal to that Chicago franchise, and
Mhm.
obviously, they got 6 rings out of it.
Yeah, they did. I mean,
Yeah.
the thing I'll say about that is that I feel like the NBA, especially just nowadays, it's that 22nd century where it's just more like you see guys more, it's just like they're more money driven in a way, or they're more like, okay, I'm gonna try to chase a championship, but I know I can't do it with these guys. Back in the day, I felt like it was more like homebred like stuff. Like, okay, I drafted you, like
Mhm.
like a good team to bring up the Pistons. They kind of had to do a little bit of like it was like little free agency stuff because obviously back in the day free agency wasn't really anything. Like it wasn't as big as it is now where people are like, "Oh, where's this guy going to go?" Like I know Brian and I are probably going to talk about it here
Mhm.
soon, but like talk about like the trades coming up here soon with like teams trying to make moves like the Lakers now
Yeah.
or even I know we kind of said the Knicks maybe might make a move, but we don't know. But I feel like nowadays there's more of a presence now where it's like, all right, who's another guy I could bring to even complement guys? Because back in the day, it was all just trying to draft who we could pick up.
Mhm.
All right, this guy is doing pretty good on this team, but he's not even getting the shine. Why don't we just bring him over here? Nowadays, it's just like you guys got you we have players now on IG just talk about tampering, talking about like Brian, I don't even know if you saw it, but
Mhm.
like the Kyle Kuzma thing where he's like, "Oh, I'm going
Oh
home to
yeah.
LA."
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, you got Donovan Mitchell and Trey Young that are like tampering.
Yeah.
Tampering?
Yeah.
Is he cheating? Is he going back to LA? It's like
I don't know why
so
he would want to, but you know, I
you
agree,
know,
Mike. Yeah, and I think Big Core over here, he brought this point up to me like a while ago, but like today's games, like you saw with RJ Barrett, like they're paying players based on like potential as a instead of like based on results. Like what is RJ Barrett? No offense, to RJ Barrett, he's on the Knicks, so I'm obviously a fan of him, but like what has he done to deserve that type of money? I don't know. So
yeah.
I just think it definitely is money driven. It's kind of like sad to see. I mean, I understand these
So,
players are getting you know a lot of money, so they can't really pass it up. But like, I just don't like that idea of like, oh, he was the third overall pick. He's supposed to be like the next big thing, and you just pay him all that money, and he's shooting 6 or 22 from the field.
yeah. But
Well, Brian, so
is it too
no, I'm
much
sorry.
to No, I'm sorry, Mr. Core, my bad.
No, it's all good. No, it's on you, Mike. Your show,
Okay.
Mike.
Oh, thank you, thank you. No, I just wanted to ask Brian. I said
Yeah,
because nowadays it's out like it's a business, and I understand
yeah,
that. But like, see, nowadays I think it's also the fact that it's also the players too. Like,
mhm,
I think that's why everybody loves the NBA because you see bigger other sports companies like the
yeah.
NFL and stuff like that. They're not really player driven. They're
No,
more like maybe owner driven or coach driven or
hmm
something like that. NBA is more player driven. So now players, yes, they might have a good season, but they might get in their head too much and be like,
yeah,
oh, I deserve to get paid this much. Like a good
because they
player.
compare it a lot. Like if this guy got paid this much, they think they should make more because their stats are better.
Exactly. So
Yeah,
like the fact like a good player I want to bring up, like now his potential has to be tested right now. But like Jordan Poole, like
yeah,
he hasn't been performing well this season so far. Like not really what people thought he was, but he just got paid big
yeah,
and everything, and he's not. But now he has a potential time span right now to
yeah. With
prove his
Curry out,
worth with Curry out. So, but I feel like nowadays it's just more player driven, where it's like guys are like, okay, I did really good. I deserve to
yeah,
get freaking. I deserve to get paid out, and
hmm
sometimes that fumbles the bag. Duncan Robinson, but
Dennis Schroeder,
Dennis Schroeder, guys like that. So
yeah,
it's crazy how the NBA works nowadays with the contracts and how players are, you know, dictating
yeah.
how much they make.
No, yeah,
Well,
for
yeah.
sure.
There's too many guys in the NBA making a lot of money whose
Yeah,
performance doesn't equate to whatever their paycheck is. And I think like that's another thing where like I think there's a kind of a divide from like my generation and your generation. Whereas back like Jordan, I think he was on. I think he was on. With him and Barkley were on like the Oprah Winfrey show one day, and they were talking about this exact thing. And Jordan said something like, "Well, yeah, like you know, in our day, you came in, you didn't make a lot of money, you had to perform to get that big contract.
yeah,
Whereas nowadays, like Brian said, you're paying a guy based on his potential, and that potential isn't always going to work out. I mean, you guys watch the draft every year, right? And
yeah,
it's always a fun night to see who goes where. And Brian and I always argue about like I'll be like I forget who it is every year, but Brian's had a number of guys. He's like that guy's going to dominate,
yeah. I
and
was
I'm like
usually
that guy
wrong.
Yeah, and he's usually wrong. But the thing is that regardless of whether he's wrong or not, that guy's taking home a lot of money over
Yeah.
the 4 or 5 years, whatever those rookie contracts are.
Mhm.
And that's really like when you're watching the NBA, it's hard not to think like, boy, that guy can't make a shot, and he's making like $5 million this year. That's
Yeah.
ridiculous. And like for me, when I see guys like that, as soon as I see a guy like throw the ball away and make a really bad play, I just switch the channel. I can't take it
Yeah.
because like these guys are being paid on potential, yet
Yeah.
they haven't ever done anything.
Mhm.
And remember that when you're drafted, those high guys, they're being drafted into really bad situations because
Yeah.
the teams they go on stink, and the
Mhm.
guys they're playing with don't have any sense of like how to make their teams better.
Yeah, that's very,
Yeah.
very true.
That's why I think it actually. I meant to say this before, but I forgot. But I think it actually really started with LeBron when LeBron went to Miami because LeBron obviously was the face of the league, and I mean he had some bad teams like in Cleveland, but I just think LeBron like
Horrible
really
teams.
he changed that like okay like I'm a he changed it being more like a players driven league. I think that's what really affected the league long term because I think LeBron going to Miami showed these other guys okay we don't have to be loyal because everyone thought I mean I don't know about it at the time but like I don't. I just I question LeBron's legacy in the fact that he every time he had to win, he had to team up with somebody. So I just that's what I think. I just think it really started in 2010, 2011 when he went to that Miami team and teamed up with D Wade and like Chris Bosh and all those guys.
Yep, and we
Yeah,
won
I don't
back
think
to back.
I don't. Yeah, exactly. And I don't. I know there's a Miami Heat fan. I don't begrudge LeBron that as much as I think I did that year. After that, one time I
Yeah,
was thinking about it. I'm thinking like all the guys who played before him, the reason why they never switched teams is they couldn't.
yeah,
Not because they wouldn't. And yeah, well, I think like Jordan was in a different kind of situation because that city was tied to him so closely, and
hmm
he hated that Jerry Krause, but he stayed there as long as he could. And I think that like after that, like those guys who played and paved the way for those free agent rules, I think a lot of those guys probably would have switched teams. I mean, because Barkley, the closest he got was when he went to that year with the Suns, and I think they lost like in this conference final, or did they make it to the final? I can't remember, but I just think that the rules were a little different, and I don't have so much of a problem um with you switching teams, but I think like when you do, you open yourself to that criticism because it's not like
yeah,
LeBron's. He went to LA, and that we know what that turned into.
yeah,
They're a very hard team to watch play.
hmm
Uh,
yeah.
You know, for sure.
No, yeah, I know. Yeah, I agree. I mean, one other thing I wanted to ask. I know we talked about it off the show multiple times, but like, who are your like top five all time?
ooh. Or you know what? I'll do you better. I'll do you better, Brian. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Oh yeah, you
What
got
Okay.
it.
is
All
your
good.
Mount Rushmore of basketball?
I
Mount
like that. I like that.
Rushmore of basketball. Like who is
Okay. So I'm a little different in that I'm definitely Jordan's on there for sure.
okay.
Okay. Because I don't particularly think it's even close. I think the only guy who got close to him is Kobe. So those two are definitely on there.
Okay.
But
Kobe and
you
Jordan.
gotta, to me, like you gotta have like Larry Bird on there. And
Okay.
I always tell this to Brian. I go, look, if you younger guys, right? So if you have you're always on your phones and your iPads and stuff. And if you went to like the top 50 guys that you liked and you Googled or you went onto YouTube and typed the guy's name and said top 50 plays, and they showed you like the top 50 plays that each of those guys made, I don't think it's even particularly close when you look at the Larry Bird highlights versus anybody else. And
Ooh.
it's because he did everything well for a guy who was 6'9" and slow and didn't particularly jump well.
hmm
He made big shots. He was a great rebounder. He was an even better passer than he was a shooter.
Yeah.
hmm
Um, and this is a guy who like didn't really dunk the ball, you
Yeah,
know,
Yeah.
and where a lot of guys like you're going to look up and you're going to say, um, you'll see like a lot of highlights for a lot of guys where they're dunking the ball all over the place, and that's all great. I like nice dunks too, but I'm not so sure I consider the dunk a quote unquote basketball play. It's an athletic play. But I would say that um, acrobatic layups are more in tune with things I'm into. The Dr. J one, when he comes down and he
Dr.
takes
J.
off on the one side of the rim and he finishes on the other, or Jordan with the up over the front of the rim and then finish with the left hand. Like those are the kind of like plays that I love to see. So you got to have Larry Bird on there, right?
True.
Now, I'll give you my hot take. Okay,
Okay.
nobody's going to ever convince me that Magic is better than Isaiah Thomas. And I'll grant you, Magic is one of the greatest winners of all time for sure. But it's Isaiah played on those bad boy teams. People outside of Detroit hated them. I hated them.
Yeah.
But Isaiah was certainly the Isaiah, not unlike Magic, best player on the '81 Indiana team that won the national championship. Okay, he comes into the NBA at his size. Him and Iverson, probably the two best 6'2" and under players in the history of the game, right? But when you saw Isaiah at his best, he was unstoppable, playing sometimes with Dumars was a great backcourt court, Hall of Famer, tremendous player. But John Sally was on those teams. Vinnie Johnson, the microwave. Rip Hamilton, I think, was on those teams. Maybe I'm not sure about him. He might have been later. But I think that nobody ever talks about how great Isaiah was. And they don't because he didn't play on the dream team because they froze him out of that. And to be frank, he didn't deserve to be on that for the way those teams played, right?
Yeah.
But I think that, to me, as great as Magic is, Magic played with the greatest center of all time, right? In Kareem. Okay. He played with Worthy. He played with Michael Cooper, one of the greatest defenders of all time. He played with a host of Hall of Famers, and you never looked at. And I know everybody wants to say, well, he played center, he hit the jump hook, he hit the jump shot, or the hook shot, I should say. But he also had a couple of really bad turnovers throwing the ball to the Celtics when they were ahead. And I forget what year it was again, but he had some really bad turnovers. Then again, listen, in the NBA, you're playing against great players. You're going to turn the ball over. So, I'm going to have Isaiah on there just for the sake of I'm talking him up. So I'm going to have to put him on there. And that fifth guy, Tim Duncan I can't really talk about guys that I never saw play. So pre 70, 75, I can't really talk about those guys because I never really saw them play on a consistent basis. I can't imagine another power forward or center being as skilled as Tim Duncan was. Just can't. I just can't. From the guys I saw, and because he did it quietly, he doesn't get the the accolades that I think other guys do who play the four. But I can't imagine. I find it hard to believe with Tim Duncan at the four, you're always going to have a chance to win games.
Right, of course.
Does that make sense, you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
I said this to you I earlier, but I think if obviously Tim Duncan was 5-1 in his finals, which is obviously great. If he went 6-0 though, people would be talking about him so much differently, which it kind of stinks that he went 5-1. He's still not really recognized for it as much as he should be, as much as other players are for their finals appearances. But I just think if he went 6-0, he'd be undoubtedly top 5. But obviously people won't talk about it as much.
Yeah. Well, how about those teams? So fun to watch back then. So fun to watch, Ginobili, so crafty with the ball, those David Robinson, those teams, they got lucky. Even they got lucky just the fact that the year before Robinson, I think, had got hurt, and they just couldn't win a game, and they got the number one pick and got Duncan, and then next year I think they won the title.
They won the title, yeah. Yep.
So
very true.
Yeah, no, I think that's an interesting list. Obviously, I wasn't alive to watch, IT and Magic go at it, but from what I've seen, IT definitely one of the most underrated superstars of all time. People don't give him enough credit for what he does, so it's good to see showing him some love on here.
I love it. I love it.
Hey, and as one aside, go back when you get a chance, look at the '81 Indiana team. Okay, where when they won it, and that roster was a fun roster
Yeah.
to um to watch for sure.
You say the
And that
Indiana that won the national championship, correct?
yeah, the
81.
Hoosiers.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Fun team. Well, not and again, not easy to play for Bob Knight, I'm sure, but
Oh
any
yeah.
guy who can get through that and go on to win national championships and doesn't get respect, and
Yeah.
and understandably so. I just want to say that again. I watch those teams a lot, and those guys were trying to kill guys out there. Lambeer, Rick Mahorn.
Yeah.
Rick, listen, I modeled my game after Rick Mahorn. Set screens and rebound. But it's an embarrassment when you roll guys out there who don't have a lot of basketball skill and are more interested in like trying to tear somebody's head off than actually trying to make a basketball
Yeah.
play.
Well, shoot, that's funny, but yeah, that's crazy. That's funny.
Yeah.
Back then was nuts. Back then was so nuts. But
Wish I was alive
I
for it,
guess we
man.
could. Oh, I know. I wish I was. I love going back and watching tape from back then and everything. It's amazing. It's
Mm.
amazing how tough it
Yeah,
was, how gritty it was.
you always see those. They always put highlights on TikTok, and you always see like those same scenes of like you know Bird going up, um, Lambeer like throwing him to the ground,
Mm.
Bird rolling on top and start punching him. Then he gets up, they separate him, and there's a ball on the floor. I think it's like close to the foul line, and Bird picks the ball up and whips it at him. It's a funny scene, but it's just kind of like a good microcosm of like what the
Yeah.
NBA was like. Because listen, Mike, you as a Heat fan can remember like with the Knicks having some real wars the same
Yeah.
kind of way.
Yep.
And that was before the NBA cleaned up that stuff. And so I think like those teams really battled with the Knicks and in a lot of ways non-basketball related battles for sure.
Mm.
But here's the Heat thing I have for you, Mike. Why is it that when people are talking about great NBA coaches, I
Mm.
for the life of me cannot understand how nobody ever talks about Eric Spoelstra.
Spolstra. Yes,
It,
I love that take. I absolutely love that. Oh, that's a beautiful. Keep going. Keep going.
yeah.
Keep going, Mr. Core.
Well, yeah. So here's the thing, right? So arguably, Pat Riley is arguably one of the obviously not even arguably he's one of the greatest coaches ever, right? But he's
Yes.
also one of the greatest front office guys ever. Like
Yes.
he's gotten that Miami team and he builds them regardless of like who he has access to. He builds winners, right?
Yes.
So that guy is not going to suffer fools, right? In NBA terms, so he's not going to bring a guy in there who's going to not be a top notch coach, and to be able to coach with him as your boss for however many years he's been doing it is really like underrated. So I'm not really sure I understand why like guys always want to talk about like other guys and nobody ever says, geez, that Eric Spoelstra every year he's got those teams ready to go. And I think that's what you look at. They don't always have the top to bottom great roster, but when you look at him, when guys go to Miami, guess what? They get better. Guess what?
Dude.
They
Jimmy
they
Butler.
get in better shape.
They
Jimmy Butler,
do.
Tyler Hero, right? Guys go
Yeah.
down there and they're Miami's smart about understanding, hey, being in shape is pretty doggone important in the NBA.
Yes, it
Like those
is.
guys never run out of gas.
Don't they have like the 8% body fat rule or something?
Yeah, it was
Oh.
10%. Like when I think it was Jermaine O'Neal when he came from
Oh,
like I believe when he
Lamar
came from the
Odom, was it?
Pacers. Yeah, I think it was
Oh, yeah.
Lamar Odom or Jermaine O'Neal
Yeah.
when they came to the Heat. They had to sign a contract. Everybody has to sign a contract and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's just the Heat culture. And just to kind of piggyback off what you're saying, Mr. Core, is like I feel like even the little story, but I'll give you a little backstory about Eric Spo because I chose it to do one of my papers. I had to do like a semester paper on Eric Spoelstra, and I loved it. But I mean, just even for someone like him, he started out coaching, being from Portland and everything, and he stepped down because at first he was coaching, but when he got exposed to the NBA world and he was about to get he applied for the coaching job in Miami, but obviously kind of didn't get it. He didn't build up that like, I guess that connection yet with Miami, and he hasn't like with the people, so he didn't get the job. But he stepped down from being a coach to being a video coordinator to then building his way through the Miami Heat like franchise company build his way through there to be trusted as a coach right under Pat Riley. So I think it's an amazing thing that you say, Mr. Core, bringing up Eric Spoelstra because I feel like he has that team ready almost every year, and he's had that team ready ever since LeBron left and ever since Dwayne Wade decided to, even though yes, we didn't give him his money, which I was very upset because I am a huge Dwayne Wade fan, the big one of the biggest, but like just to even give you props for saying like, yeah, that Heat team is always we're ready every year, and like that's why it's so hard when we do bad that it's just like, what is it? Because sometimes we're putting our best effort, sometimes it's some guys that aren't, probably doing the most that probably should do more, but it's like we go out there and we battle like every night, and it's just, with the team that we've had the past couple years, I've been proud of because it's just like I know as long as we have Eric Spoelstra at the helm, I feel like we'll be at least top top seven in the East, top six at the most. But like Eric Spoelstra has been that coach for a long time, and I don't know a lot of coaches right now in the league that have, except for maybe a couple, like a few, like probably Greg Popovich and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But like I don't see a lot of coaches that have the same type of resume, have built the same long time resume like Eric Spoelstra right now, and
And it's not like he's that old either. Like it's not like he's like 95
he's
years. Like
not, he's not.
he'll be
Right.
there as long as he wants to be there. You know, because I know people were criticizing the Jimmy when they did that sign and trade with Josh Richardson for Jimmy Butler. Like people were saying like you're paying Jimmy Butler to become like a 7 seed, and then they went to the NBA Finals and I think they went pushed the Lakers to 6 games, and I think honestly Jimmy Butler is like that perfect guy for Miami. I think because like
Mhm.
yeah, obviously he's not the most skilled player I would say, but he's like the type of guy like he's gonna hold his teammates accountable. And it looks like he like bought into that culture, which if your top players building into the culture that's provided by like the head coach and like your younger players are going to do it as well. And they had like a good mix of like guys who can get buckets and guys like PJ Tucker and like Jay Crowder that one year where like they just had toughness and guys who really just could knock down 3 pointers as well.
Yeah, it means a lot. Like as a fan of those kind of teams, you just want your teams to be competitive night in and night out. Now the
Mhm.
NBA, to win a title like that, it seems to me that every year when you get to the playoffs, that it gets smaller and smaller. Like in any particular, what teams are really going to win it, but those teams never falter in early, in the early rounds. A, because they're coached really well, they know what playoff basketball is, and B, they're always prepared to play whoever their opponent is. And when they don't win, the fans can still be proud of the fact that yeah, our roster isn't where it needs to be to win a championship, but we played over the level or over the number of wins that we probably really should have won because of the culture and then the way they're coached and the way they're built. Because I think like Jimmy Butler, when you bring Jimmy Butler in, you're bringing him in for a lot of intangibles that that you're gonna that a lot of other teams don't have. Like I don't get, like, to me, when your best player is your hardest worker on the defensive end, like it's really like your play itself is gonna hold other guys accountable because they're not gonna be able to say, well, yeah. I should have stopped that guy, or something else happened. He's not going to let that go. There's no excuses. You just get the sense that I'm not a Heat fan, but you just get the sense that like there's no excuses on that franchise when when you're not playing well.
Of course, yeah, it's crazy, especially like I remember seeing like that finals bubble, like when we played the Lakers, and I just remember it showing, like that we had not a younger, like we did have a younger team because I believe it was what Tyler Hero's second year, I believe, right,
Yeah.
Brian? I think it was like
Yeah.
Tyler Hero's second
Because he
year.
struggled. Yeah. Because he was struggling. Then he went to the bubble and just popped off.
Yeah, and he went
Yeah.
absolutely insane. And like you could see it then, like even though they were probably taken care of 24/7, you know, whatever their accommodation was in the bubble, you saw it in the finals where like Jimmy Butler was like, dude, I am doing everything in my power to win a game, and we only won one game against the Lakers.
Yeah.
So, you know, we compete, and it's a beautiful thing to watch. I just hope we could just piece that puzzle and keep going today, right now. But we're doing good right now, so I'm not gonna say anything. But I love it, Mr. Core, for bringing that attention to Eric Spo. I love it because he's been like I'm probably the most proudest of him. Like I know we've had the clientele on our team. We've had LeBron, we've had Dwayne, we had Chris Bosh. Uh, we had guys even with guys that you said they come to Miami and they get better. Like Hassan Whiteside's a good example. Josh Richardson's a good example. I mean, Shabazz Napier didn't really do anything.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't say he's a good example.
Hey, yeah, Dion
Uh,
Waiters too. He's
DL
low.
Waiters, he came and he kind of had like a little bit of a resurgence
Yeah.
throughout the year, but he wasn't like too crazy. But
Nothing too crazy.
but I do gotta say I do agree with the whole idea that like the Heat you come to the Miami, it's not just you're gonna be getting South Beach party time,
Yeah.
clubs, all that stuff. No, you come to the Miami Heat, it's business. It's
Mhm.
it's it's you. We're in the gym at like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, getting
Yeah.
ready for the next game, and I love it. I love the Miami Heat tradition, and it's a blessing to even be a fan. So awesome.
No, for sure. I mean, I think it's as a Knicks fan, we don't really have that culture. I think we have anything but a culture, it seems like. Kind of all started when they threw out Charles Oakley, Nick Wright,
Oof.
threw him out of the, I don't
Well,
even,
yeah, well, that's right. So just to touch on that, so the Knicks by far have the worst ownership in sports.
Oh yeah.
Especially in the NBA. I mean, they were the only guy who would give the Knicks a run for their money with crappy ownership is was when the Clippers were owned by Donald Sterling,
Yep.
and we know how
Mhm.
that ended. I mean, and that's the thing is like you don't understand that like drafting like in the ninth spot every year does not get you access to the players you need to win championships.
So
And you see what happened with RJ Barry. Like everybody falls in love with Duke players, and he's fine, except for the fact that shooting like 7 for like 19 every night
Yeah.
is just not indicative of a guy who should be taking 19 shots every night. I mean,
yeah.
it's okay to have shooting nights like that if that's an aberration of what you normally shoot, and not that guys in the NBA shoot 15 for 21 every night.
Yeah.
When you're shooting like jump shots now and you're shooting a lot of threes, your percentages are going to be way down.
Mhm.
But I don't think that like you need access to top 2, 3 players
Yeah.
in order to really like build the franchise the way you need it, because the reality is like the great free agents aren't coming here because we
Mhm.
got a buffoon in the front office. We got a bunch of buffoons
Well,
in the
yeah.
front office,
I think it's,
and then
yeah.
and no offense to Knick fans, I'm a Knick fan, but as long as Knick fans sell out the Garden every night and pay $8 for a bottle of water, like it's never going to change
Nah.
because that guy cares less about winning. He cares about one
Well,
thing,
Yeah.
the dollar bill. And as long
Dollar
as you're
bill.
paying them dollar bills,
yeah.
like that guy isn't going anywhere.
I was gonna say, I think when I really realized how terrible of an organization is, that one year where like we were supposed to get Kyrie, KD, and draft Zion, but like when I found out that we did not offer Kevin Durant the max, like we
Nope.
just he just wasn't willing to offer Kevin Durant the max for what I know he came off that injury, but like it's Kevin Durant. I'd rather pay him that money and have him not play a single game, just take that risk because the next, like as we've said, as you kind of just said, Big Core, like they're always good enough to like get in the middle of the pack, like maybe just be right outside the playoffs, but they're never bad enough to get a top 3 pick ever. And like we'll see it again this year. Like, look, they're on like a 6 game win streak right now, so I can't really complain. But like they're not winning a championship this year. Like they're like a couple pieces away. And again, then that year we ended up just like that offseason ended with RJ Barrett and Julius Randle, and like Randle's been okay, but as I've said, like I don't think Randle really contributes to winning. Like he puts up numbers, but like outside, if you like watch the games, I'm never like, wow, Julius Randle's a top 25 player in the NBA.
Well, try to remember a lot of these again. You can maybe tie that into the paycheck because as
Yeah,
long as those guys are getting paid, there's no incentive for them to do anything
yeah,
else. Like they're getting paid whether they win or not. And sometimes those guys play like they're indifferent towards even making the playoffs.
oh,
And guess what? They get to their season end early and they can go play golf or do whatever else they want to do.
yeah,
And
True.
I think like at the end of the day, um, like what like the benefit of a guy like Jimmy Butler is you watch him play. If you watch that guy and just watch him for 20 games in his career, right? You know that regardless of what his numbers are, he's going to come in and give you everything he's got.
Uh-huh.
And you can't say that about a lot of these guys. And that's what's hard. Like with the Knicks. Like, yeah, I like the signing this past year.
Brunson.
You have Brunson, and I think he's good. And
He's
I
a
just
dog.
think like, and to be fair, and honestly, like the one thing people forget is to get to that level. Like, if you look at like any team's bench, and you look at like the last couple guys on that bench, those guys are all tremendous players, right? But it's just there's intangibles that you have to raise the level of your game and to win games. And it's not easy to win games in the NBA,
Yeah.
and you have to have a good roster. You have to have good role players. You have to have good coaching.
Yeah.
And if it was up to Thibodeau, he'd probably play 6 guys like close to like 44 minutes a game.
Not to cut you off, Big Core, but I didn't want to forget. When I was talking to shout out Mr. Ferry, a big fan of the podcast, we were just texting about the game, and like the Knicks were up by, this was like 2 or 3 nights. It might have been last night or whatever, 2 nights ago. The Knicks were up by 30 with like 4 minutes left, and their starters were still in the game. It's like we have these young guys. And then, like, we saw with D Rose when he was coaching D Rose in Chicago, like, they were up by 20 in that playoff game with like 2 minutes left, and D Rose was still in the game and tore his ACL. So, like, I mean, as Mike knows, like, I'm anti Coach Tibbs. I think they got to get rid of him. I just don't think he can really progress the team. We have like a good mix of veterans and young guys, but like, I just don't think he's the right guy the right coach for this team at all. Like, I just don't understand why Toppin doesn't get more minutes. I know he was hurt for a little bit, but like. I just don't think he knows how to really honestly coach this team. He's not the right guy for this team, I don't think.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
that's fair.
That's true. That's true. Well, before we have you go, Mr. Core, because I know we were probably, I don't know if had anything doing, but before we have you go, we would just like to, really I'd like to thank you for coming on. And it's awesome to meet you. It's awesome. Hopefully I can meet you in person sometime, with
For sure.
But
yeah, absolutely.
One last question I have. I would love for you to answer. Who do you feel watching now so far in the season? Who do you feel comfortable with? Like, let's say, who do you feel like is like the team right now that has like a good finals team right now?
Well, I mean, listen, the Celtics ran out of gas last year a little bit in the playoffs at the end there, and it's hard to really when you watch them play. It's hard to like choose against them, even though I'm no Celtic fan.
Missoula's also a WVU grad too.
Yeah. So yeah, but it's hard to kind of pick against them in the East. I mean, Giannis will have something to say for that. I just think that like by the time it's still so early because so much can change, and in the NBA you lose one guy, that could be the end of your season quickly. So I gotta say that it's probably the Celtics are probably the favorites to go all the way, and on the other side, I'm never a fan of teams like Phoenix.
Yeah.
It's hard. When you watch the Joker play, it's he has a game that's sort of like unmatched. Him and Doncic for anybody in the NBA. But like at some point, Golden State's going to play better. They're going to have something to say about it. You can't believe in the Clippers. I mean, let's be honest. The Sacramento Kings are, I think they're just below Phoenix in the standings.
Yeah.
Yep.
And is anybody going to believe in them? So I don't think there's a lot of teams that you really can believe in. I think I think no matter what happens, it'll likely come through Golden State as long as everybody stays healthy, even though they don't even have a winning record now.
They can't win on the road.
And exactly. I mean, it's so I think the West is so herky jerky with like how teams play. They play well for a 5-game stretch, and then they don't play well for and in the playoffs. You don't have that luxury, so it can come down to a lot of things. And I think like if we have this conversation in like February, that will be cleared up a little bit. But I think like right now, if you're asking me to pick, I'd say the Celtics. I definitely in the East because until Embiid plays well in the playoffs, I'm no believer. Harden blows. I'm tired of people talking about that guy. I know Brian believes in the Pelicans, which Zion's almost unstoppable. So I'll give him credit for that. and so if you're asking me to pick, I'll say Boston v Denver
Oh,
today.
I like
Ooh,
that. You
I
think that
like
Jamal
that.
Murray coming back too?
That
I,
helps.
yeah, it helps. I like it. I mean, obviously, my pick with my hot take is the Pelicans. Come out of the
Uh,
West, but I wouldn't mind seeing the Joker. I don't think Joker gets enough credit.
They
I
got
think,
close one
yeah,
time.
yeah,
yeah,
and then
yeah, for sure. Well, listen,
like
guys, thanks a lot for having me on. I really appreciate it.
of course, of
Oh, of
course.
And
course.
happy holidays to everybody.
Thank
Yes,
you.
you too, Mr. Core.
All right, take care,
All right.
guys.
Take
Take
care,
care.
Mr.
Take
Core.
care.
See you at dinner.
Don't burn the tacos.
Don't burn that tacos.
All right.
Oh man, that's awesome,
That was
man.
great, man.
That
Mike,
was good.
appreciate you letting him come on, man. I could tell he had a blast.
Oh man, of course.
Yeah.
Hey, my guy knows his basketball
He
knowledge. I
knows. I
love
told
it,
you. He
man.
knows. He knows what he's
That
saying, man.
Isaiah Thomas, I love
Yeah.
it.
He was telling me on the ride
I
home.
love
Yeah.
it.
Shout out to Mr. Core, of course, but he was telling me on the ride home. I was like, because look, as we love to talk about it, we can, look up stats, all this stuff, but like, we didn't, you, me, Mike, we didn't live through that era, so it's like hard
No.
for us to really like. I have trouble, like, just me personally, I have trouble like hearing people like comparing like two guys from like the past who like we just didn't see play because you could look at highlights, you can look at
Exactly.
TikTok, Instagram, and see how, but like it's like until
True.
you like see them play, like as my dad said, like every time there was a game on TV he would watch it. So it's like when he's saying stuff like if his hot takes IT is better than Magic, then like I gotta take his word for it because I never saw him play. I never saw that as much as I wanted to. I just never saw that really happen. But I think it's definitely interesting because when I watched that Bad Boys team, that Bad Boys documentary, I don't know if you saw
Oh,
about the
30
30
for
for
30.
30. One of my favorite 30
Oh,
for
I
30s, right?
love those.
It
I
was just
love that one.
it was great. Honestly, I thought after that I was like I did not know how good Joe Dumars was. Like he was something, man.
There
So
was one name your dad didn't bring up that in that documentary Isaiah Thomas brings up, but people don't know that Detroit Pistons teams before they became the Bad Boys, they were scoring 100 points with him and Kelly
the
Tripucka.
oh my God, yeah, it's crazy. And
Like people don't know that.
and they really gave Jordan. They ran Jordan for his money. Like they pushed that
Yes,
bull. Obviously, as my dad said, they were fouling him at a ridiculous amount.
of course.
But like they really were that like that.
Rightfully slow. Put him on his butt, dude.
That's why I
Just
just wish I wish I wish I was like able to watch those like lowest scoring like physical battles because like back then teams genuinely hated each other. Like now you see these like I feel like it's a lot of fake tough guy stuff, and it's like back then like those teams Jordan hated Isaiah like they genuinely hated
they
each other.
still
And
don't
it's like
like each other till this day, I think.
exactly, and it's like now like the last time I really felt like a hatred watching the game was honestly when Kevin Durant went back to OKC. That was the last time where I was like okay like these guys genuinely like do not like each other. Rightfully so, because Kevin
Yeah.
Durant's a you know what. So
Yeah.
that's my take on that. It was great having him on. It was,
Oh,
enhance
great.
our knowledges. But
Phenomenal. Hey man, we got to get in a little bit of a time machine and take it back,
yeah,
but
for
I
sure.
love it, man. I love it. My dad's definitely gonna be really, really jealous. My dad's gonna be like,
Hey, bring him on,
why
man. Bring him
can't I?
on.
My dad's gonna listen to this. I love you, Dad. My
Hey,
dad
shout out
isn't
to
a
Mr.
basketball
Mohead,
guy.
man.
He's not a basketball guy. He loves his old Showtime Lakers, and he probably won't like
I was
that
gonna
little
say
comment
he might
about
not like that
Isaiah
IT take.
Thomas, over Magic, but he'll understand because
Yeah,
my dad and I we watched documentaries together, and he
yeah,
knew. My dad knows how Isaiah Thomas and Magic Johnson were close. They were the best of friends when they were younger and
yeah.
stuff like that. So my dad is definitely going to be jealous, but we might have to get him on here. Maybe get both of our dads on here, talk, some old school, you know, some old
Yeah,
school
for
Knicks,
sure.
old school Laker type stuff. But hey man, that was awesome, man. And it
Yeah,
was great. But hey man, last couple days of the NBA been
it's
crazy.
been great,
Devin
man.
Booker dropping 58 the other day.
Yeah, and they barely win though. That's my thing. Like that
Barely
Suns
win.
team, I don't know what's like he look a win's a win, but like and that was against the Pelicans, I believe. And the
Yeah.
Pelicans are my
That was
choice.
against your team. Yeah, that was against your team.
Yeah. I think it's Devin Booker's really he's been going crazy. I honestly I think within the next couple maybe year or so, I think Devin Booker might ask to get out of Phoenix. I don't know how much he can. I don't know. I just don't know how much I can see him putting up these numbers and they're barely winning. And Chris Paul has
Yeah.
been terrible this year. He's been awful.
Do you feel like he's ruining his legacy at this point, Chris
Chris
Paul?
Paul.
Yeah.
I
Because
think I will say his championship window closed 100%.
oh yeah.
Hurting his legacy. Look, this is I'll tell you, it's definitely not helping his legacy. Um, I just think Chris Paul. I was actually talking this with Big Core, but my hot take is I don't think Chris Paul. I don't know if this is a hot take. I don't think Chris Paul is a top 10 point guard of all time. Um,
You don't
that's
think
just
Chris Paul is a top 10 point guard, or you
I
say he
just
is?
don't think he is a top 10 point guard.
Top 10?
I
Oh.
don't think he's top 10.
So if you had to name 9 point guards of all time better than Chris Paul, then who's that?
So you're gonna have to help me with this, but I'm going
Okay.
Magic, Curry, IT,
Okay.
Stockton.
Okay.
I'm putting not this is in no order, but I'm putting Russ over him. That's might be my biasy.
Ooh.
Who
Uh,
else do we have? Jason Kidd. Trying to think who else. I don't want to be forgetting anybody. Honestly, I'm putting AI over him. I don't know if that's a hot take.
it's not a
What is
hot
that?
take, but I don't know because a lot of people put him in as a shooting guard, but that's
True,
fair.
yeah. How many is that?
7, I believe. 7, 8.
Seven.
Yeah, so you got
I
like
mean,
two, three
oh,
more
Steve
players.
Nash. I'll definitely put Steve Nash over him. Two
Yeah.
MVPs. I think you have to.
Yeah.
I know you can. Oh, Oscar Robertson as well. And honestly, you can make him. I just from based on what the stats and like just what based on. I never saw him play, but I could argue you could argue Bob Cousy as well.
Okay, yeah,
And
sure.
honestly, maybe even Jerry West too.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
just
that's true. That's true.
I just don't. He's not really done anything. Look, he's had a great career, has a number of accolades, whatever. But
True.
I just don't think he's a top 10 point guard of all time. I there's 10 guys I'd rather have over him, and um, I just don't, I can't see him being top 10. Maybe if he got that ring against Milwaukee, but he didn't get that ring, so I don't know. Like, is there anyone on that list who you would take over Chris Paul over? Maybe Russ. I don't know what your thoughts are,
It's not
but
that I've heard that it's funny that you bring this up because the reason why I asked about it is because that's been a topic of conversation recent about
hmm
Chris Paul kind of hurting his legacy or even just like dude, what are you doing now? Like you're not even your team is like no
yeah,
one knows what your team is. Like everyone's saying your team's good, but really you're not. Like
yeah,
they haven't been performing well. Um like it the only thing I gotta say about Chris Paul is just like he's a top 10 point guard for me all time,
hmm
but he probably is at the end of it because of the
yeah.
fact like recently and like the last couple of years, it's just like it's been the same story over and over again,
Yeah,
dude.
I just
Like
don't
you
know how he
can't
didn't. Yeah,
get over any hump in the
like
playoffs. You you end up getting hurt, which yes, we could give him the benefit of the doubt. Hey man, like we're sorry about that. The NBA gods are against you, but like,
uh-huh.
dude, like you
Yeah,
can't like
but it kind of reminds me to like Carmelo Anthony a little bit. Like Melo had an outstanding career, for especially ever since it was really when he went to OKC where things kind of went downhill, and then he went to Portland, revived his career a little bit. But like, now he's like for maybe not us, Michael, because like we kind of like we've been following the game for a while, but for guys who are like getting into the game now, like Melo is not even good enough to be on a team. That's what it looks like because nobody's signing him. So I compare it to
uh,
that. It's like I don't want to say it hurts his legacy because like he's getting older. The Suns they're struggling a little bit here and there, but like as we've seen, Booker has put up 58 for them to barely squeak out a win.
we gotta win. Yeah.
So look, Chris Paul's a great player. I think he's been overrated his entire career. That's my take. I don't think he's a winner really. And when things go wrong, I just get the vibes where he doesn't think he's the problem. Like I don't know how he didn't even get to. I just don't know how he with that Lob City team how they did not like get to the finals. Like at a minimum,
Yeah.
I think if he's that great of a point guard, he would have got his team there. And look, they had to play other teams who were that was like when the Spurs were really good. Like they had other like teams that like were very hard to beat. But I don't know how he can be a top 10 point guard. All those guys I've named, I'm not taking Chris Paul over them.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, for me, it'd probably be number one, greatest point guard of all time, Magic Johnson. Number two,
Mm-hmm.
oof.
Or
Number two's hard for me because
I
I
think it's
love
Curry.
Isaiah Thomas, but I probably gotta put Curry there because he has more rings.
Do you think Curry? I'm not to cut you off, but do you think in my book Curry's the best point guard of all time? Do you think he's?
Oh no, not over Magic. I'm sorry, not over
You
Magic.
don't think he's better than Magic?
No, no,
I don't know how he cannot be
no,
better than Magic. I think he's
no.
hands down though. I think he's the best point guard of all time, hands down.
Oh, that hurts me. That hurts me. That hurts
Hey,
my heart because I'm just like I love Curry. I've always had respect for him. I hated him at some point
hey,
because, it
no,
was
I
just
understand.
annoying to see him just run around screens and shoot threes. But like, yes, did he change an era? Yes, he definitely did, and I'll give it to him. And maybe maybe that's maybe like the little nod I'd probably give over Magic Johnson, but dude, Magic Johnson was like
But yeah,
a
this is
different a different somebody. Like dude was six
yeah,
nine, where guys were like, "Yo, you're not a point guard. You need to be down there." He's like, "Okay, well, I'm not going to be down there."
yeah.
Like because if you don't have Magic Johnson, please tell me this, Brian. If you don't have Magic Johnson,
Mhm.
do we see guys like LeBron nowadays? Do we see guys that are like big
Mm,
guards?
that's a fair point, but what my point is kind of my point's actually kind of your point. Like he's 6'9", right? But like Curry's like 6'3", I believe.
6'3", yeah.
And like what he's doing at his size, I just think what he does like during each game, the wow, he like has to work for every single shot. I'm not saying Magic didn't have to work for what he did, but every their defenses are sending everybody at him. The only way he can get shots off when he gets a million screens because everyone's wherever he's if he's on the court the second he leaves his car and gets into the arena, that's when you have to start
As soon
guarding
as he
that guy. I don't know
wakes
who
up,
said that.
as soon as he wakes up and gets out of
When he
bed,
wait
that's when
yeah
you
you
need to
have
guard him.
and but at his size I that's what I think what makes Curry it's at his size and that's what makes
Yeah,
Magic. I think it kind of just how you perceive the two different things, but
that's
I,
true.
I I just think what Curry's doing at his size and just how skilled he is. Like he doesn't the thing
Yeah,
Curry doesn't have to rely on athleticism, and
yeah,
not
that's
that
true.
Magic has to rely on, his athleticism, but being 6'9" helps a lot.
No,
So
it does. It
and
does. It
that's
it helps, but like I feel like for me, the way I look at it, Curry, I mean, for his height and all, like you're right. You're right. His height, the way he has
mhm,
to make buckets, it's a little bit harder for him. But if you talk about because this is probably where the argument would happen. And
yeah.
this is what a lot of people is just like if you think about it, and nowadays it's a point guard driven league.
Oh,
Like
100%.
a hundred
100%.
percent. Like
Yeah.
you if you have the ball, if you're it's not even a point
Okay.
guard.
No,
Like
I
if
see what
you
you're
are the
saying. I see what you're
primary
saying.
ball handler, like you're gonna do your thing. Like it's nothing against Curry. I think Curry is the greatest shooter of all time at this point because he beat Ray
Oh,
Allen, even
100%.
though
Yeah.
I used to say Ray Allen, but Curry, he's beaten that. He's proven us. He's proven us again and again and again. But I still got to give it out to Magic Johnson because it's just the time frame that he came in, the the I'm not even saying myths, but the stereotypes that he broke, that he was a
Mhm.
6'9" guy, he could pass the ball, he could score, he could play almost every position. Like that
Ben
was your
Simmons.
first,
No, I'm kidding.
yeah, that was
But
wow. Wow. Did you just say Ben?
no, I
Wow.
thought you were describing Ben Simmons.
No,
No, I'm
no,
playing. I'm playing. I'm
no,
playing. No,
no.
I don't want people to think. No, I take that back. I'm not saying Ben Simmons. I'm just saying Ben Simmons kind of resembles like a really, 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 really
That's
worse
true.
version of Magic.
Dang, the fact that you said that just made me rethink a lot because I take your opinion, man. I take it and I
I
and I keep note because I know you're a smart guy and I know you know your stuff. So I'm like, dang.
appreciate that.
But I'm still with that comment, I'm still not taking Curry,
Wow.
But I do gotta say Curry gets number two, like from building from what he came from, man. Like I feel like being number two greatest point guard of all time, man, especially from what he's coming from.
Yeah.
Like that's amazing. And I
And
and
both
I
guys stayed where they got like what I like is they never
exactly.
had to leave. Like when Curry came in
No.
the league, Curry struggled as like he had those ankle injuries.
Yeah, there
And
was rumors that he was gonna get traded
yeah, he was gonna get
early
traded
in
for
his
Andrew
career.
Bogut, that Bogut
Yes.
trade. So that's what I like about Curry. And same with Magic. I mean, obviously, as my dad said, having Kareem helps. And to be fair, Curry's had played with Kevin Durant, he's played with great teammates.
Yeah.
And that's a part of the game. It's not just about a one man show. Because
Yeah,
like
of
look,
course.
you could argue. Well, that's the thing. You could argue if like Curry didn't have Durant, they don't win those finals. And then same thing if Magic didn't have Kareem, it's a what if world. But and that
Oh,
not
wait,
to.
hold on. Magic didn't have Kareem in that rookie
Well,
year
yeah,
when
no,
he
no,
won
that's
it.
not. But to be fair, Curry didn't have Kevin Durant, and he won it too.
That's true. That's
You know,
true. That's true. That's true.
um,
Yeah, that's true.
but that reminds me. So I don't think it's close. Obviously, my dad kind of brought up the point, but like people say like Larry Bird or Kevin Durant. Who do you? What are your thoughts? I mean, I think it's Larry by a long shot. I just be interested to
Larry
hear.
or Kevin Durant?
Yeah,
Yikes.
you think
You're
it's
talking.
close?
Oh,
Because Durant never had. I mean, Larry Bird never had to. Durant had. I don't think Durant's legacy is complete until he gets a ring on his own team. Because at the end of the day, he had to go to Golden State to win a championship.
that's true.
You
That's
know,
true. Yeah, you're right. It's just hard to say because just at that point, Yeah, I mean Larry Bird, he stayed with the Celtics and
Yeah.
he did his
But he
thing.
got like he like made Kevin McHale. I believe Kevin McHale's a Hall of Famer. I could be
Oh,
wrong,
but
but
I wouldn't say, oh, whoa, 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 Brian. Do not
well,
say he built Kevin McHale. Kevin McHale was the guy in himself because
no, but I don't think McHale's a Hall of Famer if he doesn't play with Bird.
you don't think so?
I
I
mean,
think
again,
you
it's
need to go
still,
look back at those numbers. You need to go look at some
but
Kevin
he's playing with
McHale
Larry Bird.
numbers. He's not Larry Bird, but I mean they had a good team too. They had a really good
They
team
did. Hey,
with
also,
Parrish,
my knowledge on
McHale.
back in those days isn't as high as other people. But like, I don't know. I just think,
You're gonna have our older audience very upset.
hey, okay, well, you know what? They can hop on the show and we can debate it if they have a problem with it. Yeah, like, but I don't. I'm okay. I don't know if I should say he made Kevin McHale Hall of Famer. But like that's what make these greats great that they make their teammates better. So Larry Bird,
Oh,
you
of
could say
course,
LeBron did the same thing. He got Timothy Mozgov like a $64 million contract.
he
So
did.
that's what makes the greats great. So maybe I have to reword that a little bit, but
Yeah.
like I don't know. But as you're saying, Michael,
No, no, no. I mean, but like the pick between Katie and Larry Bird, it's just I'm thinking more. I'm being a purist right here. I'm just being a pure basketball player right here, where it's
uh
just like talent wise, man, they were almost equal. Like talent wise, like, and the reason why I say equal, hold on, and I know a lot of people are gonna be like, "What the world?" Like Kevin Durant can break off Larry Bird, cross him up, and stuff like that. It's just like you're talking about two guys that played the three position that were bigger than what they were. Because a lot of people watch Larry Bird, they're like, oh, he wasn't that big. And people are like, Larry Bird was like 6'9", 6'10", and
yeah,
he could dribble, do all this stuff. But his shot was money. Like he wasn't
yeah,
missing. He wasn't missing. Like that one, I think it was a 50 point game in New Orleans that they talk
yeah.
about where he played the Hawks, where the dude was shooting off balance fadeaways
Are
from
you
the
talking
corner
about Larry,
three.
right?
Yes, we're
He
like
had
on
like a
the
30-point
bench,
triple double shooting all lefty.
all lefty, man, with a
I don't know if it was a triple double, but he had at least 30 one game, maybe 28. But he played lefty. Like I don't know. I also hear stories where like Larry was like the worst, like the best trash talker, which is kind of interesting. Like,
Oh, he
you know,
is. That
I
dude is.
I wish
That dude was nuts.
Michael, as my dad said, we got to go back after the show ends and we got to watch Larry Bird's 50 greatest plays.
Oh, I already watched the Larry Bird highlights. I love watching old school highlights. Like
Yeah,
I watch like nowadays like some players now like recent, but like I'm like I already see what you've been doing. Like let me go
yeah,
back and watch like some T Mac,
yeah.
Orlando Magic, some Vince Carter on the Raptors. Let me go back.
Vince
Well, let me
Carter,
watch
yeah,
like Isaiah Thomas before. Like oh my lord, like they
yeah,
talk about. Just think about this. To bring up the Isaiah Thomas thing again,
uh,
people talk about how, oh, when Isaiah Thomas, like when Isaiah, let me remember how to say this. But you know how when Isaiah Thomas, they talk about, he even talks about this, how it says, you know how there's always like those players where like they can play full court rather than just half court, like set up an offense. Like they're very,
mhm,
up and down. So
yeah,
Isaiah Thomas talks about how, yes, he was a good player half court because he could slow it down. Like, because, back in the day, that's what you were taught. Like, you were taught
yeah,
slow it down as a point guard, slow it down half court, set up the offense, go through every little sequence of the play and do your thing. But what people don't
mhm,
know is Isaiah Thomas, if you want to take Isaiah Thomas in his prime, like where he's pretty much undeniable, like he's the best player in the
mhm,
NBA, I take it before he started winning championships because he was godlike. Like
yeah,
people, if you want to watch some tapes, watch Isaiah Thomas before he started winning. Like when he scored 100 points with Kelly Tripucka, look back at those highlights. That dude
yeah,
was nuts, nuts.
yeah,
He's probably how we see Kyrie Irving today.
uh-huh,
That's what I would
yeah,
say because he was dribbling around everybody. You couldn't stop him. He had a counter move for every counter move. Like no, Isaiah Thomas was Isaiah Thomas.
yeah. And I think, well, obviously, we saw the story where if you watch the Last Dance documentary where Jordan because of how the Pistons teams treated Jordan just physically during the games, kept Isaiah off that U.S. team. I think I was always interested to see how that dynamic would have worked if they were on the same team together. Like just if would they put the beef aside? I mean, clearly the beef is still going on until today. So I agree though. I think IT like it's interesting to see guys like that at that size just do what they're doing against guys who are like 7 feet tall.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's always been like that thing where like height wise, where it's just like there's always been a difference. I feel like
Yeah,
there's always like even back in the day, you had guys that were like nowadays. I feel like it's just I feel like the only real difference is from back then, and I know a lot of people probably be like, "Well, what's wrong with you?" But I
hmm
feel like really the only two differences that I've seen big time between back then and now is just rules and evolution of skill. Like you had a lot of
yeah,
big guys back then that all they were doing was protecting the rim. That's
yeah.
all they were
And
doing.
fouling people.
Like fouling people. Yeah, exactly. Bill Laimbeer. Like I don't want to
Bill
give
Lambert,
I,
perfect example. Rick
perfect
Mahorn,
example. Big guy,
all those guys.
just take out whoever comes to the paint. Nowadays, you got guys that are 7 foot that
Like
could
the
do
Joker,
everything. Like the Joker, you have new guys coming
Embiid.
in the league like Chet Holmgren. You have Poku on the Thunder. There's
Yeah,
7 foot guys that could just dribble and do whatever they
Bobo
want now.
too, over
Bol
7 feet.
Oh, we gotta talk about Bobo.
Bobo.
But hey man, your Knicks, man. Hey, you guys been winning.
Hey, I got to give credit where credit's due. Again, I said it earlier. Not a fan of Coach Tibbs at all. I was very critical of the rotation adjustment where they took Cam Reddish and D Rose out. I think just trade him. I mean, D Rose still has he's old. He's got a bunch of miles on him. I get it. I feel like we might as well just trade him. You know what I'm saying? But what I'll say is they're winning, and as a Knicks fan, they haven't won much recently. Um, but so I will say I think Julius Randle. I was watching the Bulls game. Not they played the Bulls a bunch of
Uh,
times in last week, but the one in the overtime game on I believe it was like the 14th, whatever. He put up like 35 and 10, which is great. I caught the second half, but like he was just taking. He's like the type of guy where he puts up numbers, but I really don't see it contributing to winning at all. Like there was a play before when it's overtime, it was the end of the fourth quarter, and we had the ball. I believe it was I believe it was a tie game. It was like we had the ball last possession. And he just dribbles into like three guys guarding him and throws up a prayer and bricks it. And it's like, I just don't know. I feel like, if you're playing at the NBA, you got to make a basketball play. If three guys are coming to guard you, I feel like, at least one guy's going to be open. And he just doesn't make those types of plays, which I'm critical of it. Like he puts up numbers, but I'm just like, when is that really going to contribute to winning? And look, we're on a bit of a win streak, which is surprising. Right now, we're up 1.5 against the Pacers. Um,
you guys are on a 6 game winning streak
Six
right
game
now.
win streak. And look, I,
Yes.
I gotta give credit where credit's due. My whole thing is I just want to I gotta give credit to Grimes has been playing well. He's been really taking that step now that he's put in the starting lineup. And I
Uh-huh.
quickly has been up and down this year. His shot selection is not the greatest, but other than that, RJ's been better. He's been shooting better, but a little bit more efficient. So not much to say there. But yeah, Mike, I mean, 6 game win streak, I got to be happy with the team. I just want to see, this continue because as my dad said, the way NBA is nowadays, teams might go on 10 game win streaks and follow that with like 11 game losing streak. So,
True.
Mike, I can't complain. They've been playing hard. I said it earlier, Tibbs, I don't know why he's playing the starters when we are up by 20 with 5 minutes left. It just doesn't really make
Uh,
sense to me. Like I feel like you got to get the bench involved. Like we have a pretty, not we don't have the greatest bench in the world, but I feel confident if we're up by 20 with like 4 minutes left that they can keep it. So that's all I got to say. Nothing too crazy, nothing too negative, too positive. A 6 game win streak. I'll pass the mic to you, Mike. What's going on with your Heat, man?
Oh my, hey, we've been winning. We're back up to 500. I love it. We're doing good. We've been having some battles, but hey, we play like how we played back in the
Mhm.
day, man. We win it out with defensive gritty games and
I saw that
you
low
know,
scoring game. I believe the Pacers. It was
uh-huh, uh-huh. It
yeah,
was an ugly win though, an ugly win. We should have won by a little bit more than that, or even should have won by a lot, but it was an ugly win. I mean, even Jimmy Butler said it. It wasn't the best of wins, but we dig it out. I feel like that's why when you play our team, we play the Miami Heat, you got to play all the way to the last whistle,
yeah,
because like we are going to do anything in our cause. We're going to shoot 5 million shots if we have to, because we're going to take them and try to make them. But usually, a lot of our guys don't shoot
yeah,
as consistent as we want to be. But we're doing good, man. We're above 500. That's all I want right now, especially how the beginning was so far. But Victor Oladipo is doing his thing on the defensive side, getting steals. I think like literally those last
yeah.
like
Oh
three,
yeah.
4 games he's like been playing. He's averaged more than like 2, 3 steals a game. So
Mhm.
like he's doing his thing. Bam's been resting a couple games because it's a long season. It's a lot of back-to-back games. So
Yeah.
Bam was resting when we played the Spurs last night, I believe, in Mexico. I believe we played them in Mexico
Yeah.
yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday game in Mexico, and it was hey, we won. We got our fourth game in a row. Bam actually played, so I was wrong about that. The game before he
Yeah.
didn't play, but he had 22, 13. Nice little double
Yeah.
double. Um, I like where our team's at right now. Probably, I wish we could be better,
Mhm.
but it is what it is.
They'll be
Jimmy
ready
Butler.
playoff time though. I can promise you that. With Spo, they'll be
Oh
ready playoff
yeah,
time.
we'll be ready. We'll be ready. The way we're
Yeah.
right now, the way I feel like we're gonna keep building is like, yeah. But one thing before I get off my team,
Yeah.
Tyler Hero's that guy.
I'm glad you
Tyler
brought that
Hero
up.
is that guy. I don't want to hear it anymore. People were saying he was taking a step back. He was just trying to facilitate all that stuff. Yes, he was. And I was kind of upset about it, but he stepped up the other day and dropped what, 40?
He
Tell
went
me,
off, and he
went
shot. It's
off.
efficiency, which is the most impressive part.
Efficient. He had 11. Oh my, he had 10 threes. 10 threes. My bad. He
10
beat
threes.
he beat the franchise record, man. Oh, Tyler Hero's that guy, and I need people to give him that respect because people weren't because they were like, oh, he's taking a step back. His team doesn't look good. I'm like, are you nuts? Like, are you nuts? Come on now.
Yeah.
Don't sleep on Boy Wonder. Boy Wonder
And
stepped up and I'm enjoying it. But
yeah, and he was in that same draft class as RJ, man. Brings a tear to
yes,
my eye.
yes. And hey man, it's been nice. It's been nice. We've had a good solid couple games. We've won. Just gotta keep going. Just gotta keep
Yeah.
going. I I
Yeah.
want us at least top. How close is it? I'd say I'm bold enough to say top four in the East
You
by
think?
by All Star break.
So you think they'll be ahead of obviously I think ahead of
I
them will
say we
be
fight with the Nets for
the
fourth
Nets.
spot. Yeah,
Hey, you're just looking over my Knicks, man?
I'm looking over your Knicks. I ain't
And
worried
Philly
about your
too.
Knicks. Philly, but Philly, I mean,
Honestly, I don't disagree. I don't
they're
disagree.
having a weird little thing. Like they barely
Yeah.
beat the Warriors yesterday, and they didn't even have Curry.
Yeah, Mike, I'll give it to you. Looking at this, they're not gonna, being realistic, they're probably not gonna come up to pass the Bucks or Celtics. I mean, they're really not
Oh
that
yeah,
far
no,
behind if you think about it. It's like six
no.
games, like and it's early. It's still relatively early in the season, but like,
Mhm,
again, if they get matched up to four though and have to play Philly in the playoff series, that would be a fun playoff series.
mhm.
That would
I'd
be
love
very
that.
even Brooklyn too. I mean, I think they would. I think they have a better chance to beat Brooklyn than Philly, but I don't know. It
I don't
depends.
know. Yeah, it really depends because I feel like with Joel Embiid, at least he'll probably give us work.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's done it before. Like
Hmm.
Sixers Heat, like when we had Justice Winslow, we were playing the Heat Sixers earlier in like first rounds in the NBA playoffs. He gives us the work, but like when I think of their team and I think of who they have at point guard in the
Yeah.
playoffs, I'm like, I'm fine. He's gonna
Yeah.
turn over the ball and probably let us win games. So I'm
Yeah.
fine with that. But you know, hey, it is what it is, and I'm happy. My little bold take is that half All Star break will probably be number 4 team in the East. Probably not.
Four.
Probably number
Hey,
five.
you said it
Probably
yourself though.
number five.
You still think the Cavs win the East though, right?
Yeah, I do actually.
I like it. Stick with
I
it.
do because hey, we gotta talk about this. The Celtics have lost 2 straight.
Hey, yeah,
Are they
I
back to
believe Tatum
earth?
was out though. Tatum was out for personal reasons, I believe. Um, but they lost to the Magic. The Magic went on like a 5-game win streak.
Dude, they're on a 6-game win streak right now.
They actually beat the Celtics twice, 2 games in a
Twice.
row.
Bro, this is
Paulo's been
magic.
balling. You said it before, Mike. I'll let you take it from here. But like, talk about Bobo. Talk about what you're seeing from him.
Boble, hey man, I love it. Boble's been there. See, it's just literally, it's just about playing them, giving them
Give
that
him
little
time.
exposure, give them that
Exactly.
time. Because like the Nuggets didn't give him any time. They didn't, and like it's funny because he would come in and he would do his work like just for a couple minutes. He would come in and the
Exactly. And
Nuggets
they'd
wouldn't even
stop
play him.
playing. Imagine Bobo and the Joker on the same team.
Oh,
That would have
that's
been fun,
dangerous.
dude.
That's so dangerous. And I like, oh my lord,
Two
Boble,
seven
man.
footers who can run the floor and bring the ball up and go
Bro,
coast to
Boble could
coast.
dribble. Boble could
He
dribble.
can dribble, and
He
the
could
Joker
dribble.
can dribble.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like it's like, dude, the Denver had it. Like Put Bobo on that Denver team this year, and look, my dad said his hot take's Denver, not a hot take, but he believes Denver wins the West. Which,
Uh,
if you threw Bobo on that team, I don't think it'd be much of a question. I think they definitely have the potential to do that.
bro, he's nuts, man. Last 5 games, he had 21 against Atlanta. I mean, he's not playing he hasn't played enough, but they've won
Yeah, he
the
only had 20
last
minutes last
5 games.
night, or what? Yeah, when they played their win against the Celtics, he only played 20 minutes, but
20
still put up
minutes.
11 and 8, which in
Yep.
20 minutes, think of it, you're playing 40 minutes, that's 22 and 16 if you think about it.
Look, they played him 27. He scored 21.
Yeah,
And he shot 53% from the field, 75% from the 3 point. Like this dude is like an anomaly.
we don't
Like
see
this
much
dude
of these
can
people. Like this is like not normal.
oh yeah.
It's not. And I think we'll see with he's like, look, he's not going to get the amount of press as Victor Wembanyama, but like it's similar
Mhm.
in the sense like 7 footers who can shoot, who can run the floor, who can pass the ball. Like what on the floor? Like, look, maybe he has to be. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but he doesn't really have to be fast. You see with Luca, you just play at your own pace. Um, but
He's
yeah,
got
Mike,
long legs. He's fine. He's
yeah.
7'2", man. Like
The
he's
Magic
doing
are
a
going to
thing.
be a fun team to see in the next 3 to 5 years with that team, what
They're a
they
fun
got
team to
going over
watch
there.
now. I mean, Paulo right now
Yeah,
has 20. I think he has almost 30. I think
he
he's
had
at
31 last night
31.
or
So
whatever night
against the
that was.
Celtics.
Yeah,
So today against the Celtics, he had 31, 6 and 3.
they played. Oh yeah. That was today. Yeah, you're right. That was
That
today.
was today. They played today, and like, hey man, this team is really fun to watch. Like this team is Orlando Magic.
Shout out to Tanner, man.
Shout out to Tanner. Shout out to my family out in the
Hey,
407, man, in
407, man,
Orlando. Hey, Orlando's balling right now, but they gotta keep going. They gotta just keep doing. Don't worry about it. Keep winning.
for sure.
Just stay on your thing because I was about to write y'all off and say go tank for Victor, I guess,
But I
because
was telling you, Mike. I was telling you like even in the first couple of games, like I did not think that Orlando was the worst team in the East. Like even when they were at the very bottom,
yeah.
like I just didn't. There's just they have such their potential is really through the roof. And like I
Oh
don't
yeah.
know. I don't see them really making the. I don't see them making the play in this year. Like if
Yeah.
you're looking at the 7 to 10 seeds, you got Miami, the Pacers, the Hawks and Raptors. Like I don't see in any world them catching up. But they're really only like 2 games behind. About 3 games behind the Raptors for that 10 seed. But I don't see that happening yet.
Yeah.
Um, but Mike, that reminds me. One to my like, what's going on in Chicago, man?
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know if it's it's hard to say because they haven't been performing well. They're on a three
Zach
game
Levine's
six
been
games.
subpar. Like he's been solid, but Zach Levine should be better. And they have DeMar too. Like I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, it's odd because I feel like it's maybe just the fact that DeMar DeRozan is now settling now at this point where it's like it's kind of just become his team and like
Yeah,
he
that's
does
true.
everything because like Zach Levine, like when he went to the Bulls, it was like, oh crud,
Hmm.
this guy's legit. Like this guy is doing this thing. He's scoring. He could drop 30, 40, whatever he
Hmm.
wants. He could take off. Like it was good, but then you had another guy that demands the ball, that demands that like he scores at mid range. Like
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I hope they can figure it out because like they're supposed to be one of the top teams. I mean, last year they were a
Hmm.
top team in the East, but now it's just like
And it's not
there's
like they lost anybody like big. Now, and I mean
they
Lonzo's
haven't.
hurt, but like
Yeah.
Lonzo's been hurt his entire career, so it's like I don't know what you expect
Uh,
there.
but I
Um,
feel like Lonzo did add that little
oh, 100%.
to that
Yeah,
team.
I love watching Lonzo play. He
Yeah.
really like is a great facilitator. He just his IQ is really through the roof. But I mean,
Sure.
if he's hurt, you can't. His IQ doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't. But I mean, it sucks for the Bulls because I like the Bulls. I genuinely have always been interested in the Bulls. They've always been that team where it's just like they're like another team where it's just like they're always gonna kind of just be in the mix. But now
Yeah,
seeing
but
them where they're kind of out of the mix, they're not doing so well. They're losing games or
I
they're
don't know what's going on. Yeah, it's like, do they blow it up? Not blow it up, but like DeMar's getting older, and they just signed him to that
yeah,
big contract. I just don't know.
yeah,
And as I said, I was thinking if I was going to make a prediction, I think the Mavericks are going to try to make a move for Zach Levine. If they, I don't know,
yeah.
they'd have to send picks, but I don't know how much longer. I just having Levine and DeRozan's evidently not enough.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, I don't think it's enough because I mean, you even look at the players around them. You got Nikolai Vucevic,
yeah, they got
you
solid
got
veterans. I
yeah, you
don't
got
understand.
Kobe White,
He's
right? Kobe
yeah.
White,
Yeah,
yeah,
they
yeah.
got Ao, whatever. I
Ayo
don't know how to
Dosunum,
pronounce his name.
Dosunum,
Out
I
of
can't say
Illinois.
it. Ayo, yep, he's fire. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
Patrick Williams didn't work out that well for them, but like,
I didn't understand that. I to this day I don't understand. They could have drafted him late in the first round, and I just didn't
yeah,
understand that. I mean, we don't have to go into that, but
yeah,
yeah,
but I
I
don't
don't
know.
know, Mike.
It's a little weird. The Bulls, the East is the East, man. I don't even know what to say. Like the Nets are playing well. The
They've been balling.
Sixers, the Nets. Hey, man, that's what happens when you got. Hey, Kyrie's been
That's the thing. We said it on the show.
balling.
The
You know,
the question is never that the Nets were bad. They just didn't have their guys were never available. Like they just didn't have. And we saw them. They beat the Pacers without their top 8 rotational players.
see, this is
It's
a
like
perfect example, and I don't mean to even get into this, but this is a perfect example. Of just hoop,
just
just
hoop,
hoop,
just hoop.
just hoop,
Because
bro.
like Katie and Kyrie is just the skill level is through the roof.
Through the
You
like
know?
nobody, yeah, it's like they're like on a tier B, like skill level tier. They're top tier. Like there's a split between them and other people in the league, and it's like all
Yeah,
they like. Listen, yes, have your view, have your talk, have your thing, but like, dude, just hoop, just hoop. You
just
do
hoop,
your
man.
thing, bro, because you've been killing it, been
Yeah,
killing it, and they're
and
doing
yeah,
good. So, but it's good because stuff like this happens. They're number four in the East. No one thought of this. Everyone thought, oh, they're just gonna collapse. They're gonna be at the bottom of the
uh-huh.
East. They're just a drama team, stuff like that. And I didn't wish that for them. I was like, you know what?
Yeah,
I feel like they should be making the playoffs. They should be going far because you have two of the probably most unguardable guys in our
yeah.
era. Like, I don't know anybody who could literally put a hand in Kevin Durant's face because he's like
Nobody.
7 foot. And then Kyrie, like, no one could guard him.
That's the thing. I think
He,
you gotta. Oh, no, continue, Mike. You're good.
no, no, I was just gonna say, like the only little thing I was gonna say was that he's already argued, like right when he joined the league, he was already argued what the greatest ball handler of all time.
Yeah, hands
So
down.
like, come on now, if you got
Yeah,
that and that, like, you're pretty much unstoppable.
yeah, and I think you got to give a huge credit to the head coach. I think Jock Vaughn's his name. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I could
Yep,
be
Jacques
pronouncing it.
Vaughn. You know who's
Jock
gonna
Vaughn.
give you a lot of credit for that, Brian?
Who?
A
Who?
lot of the Orlando Magic fans, because Jacques Vaughn used to coach the Magic.
Hey, yeah, hey, you got to give him credit, man. He came into that situation. Steve
Yep,
Nash left because of the mess that was
yep,
going
yep.
on there. And look, he got whatever he's doing is working. Got Kyrie
It is
on the court. Katie, Katie's gonna ball out regardless, but
true.
and they're winning games, and it's the fact that they won that game against the Pacers with their literally eight, um, their top 8 rotation guys outside of maybe Cam Thomas. Um, I'm like, you got to give credit. Like that's actually like, it's leaving me speechless, man. It's leaving me speechless. I hope they keep it up because look, I hate Kevin Durant. I was a big Russell Westbrook fan. Hate's a strong word. I wasn't a big fan of Kevin Durant. Um, but like, look, man, it's fun to watch when these teams when the stars are out there actually hooping. It's like the Nets are winning. Like, what do we expect? They should be winning. Like, I don't know, man.
Exactly. We just love when people are just hooping. That's
Just
all we
hooping.
do.
Yeah,
As fans, if you're a true basketball fan, you just love watching when it's just hoops, when it's
yeah,
just a game, when it's just the ball bouncing.
100%.
We don't care about all that politics. Like I don't even want to say politics, but all that stuff off outside the court. Like, yeah, you deserve
Mhm.
your own life. You're your own person. But bro, we came here for hooping. We didn't come here
Exactly.
for
That's what we're about, man. That's what we're
whatever you
about.
like. But yeah, man, the league is right now the we're in that stage right now where we're starting to see teams perform, starting to see teams be more themselves, and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like we're starting to see, the Celtics on their losing skid. We're starting to
Yeah.
see, all right, are they coming back from this freaking being out of this world team? We're starting to see the Knicks do well. We're starting to see the Heat do
Yeah.
well. We're starting to see,
I'm just yeah, I'm interested to see what happens when obviously we got the recent news that Anthony Davis is out for like the next month.
for a
So I'm
month.
interested to see
Yeah.
what happens with the Lakers because he's been their best player this season.
I
Um
would I would not be surprised if they not that they do better, but if they keep winning.
yeah, I mean, look, I'm not a Laker fan, obviously, but I love Russell Westbrook, so I'm always gonna be rooting for Russ wherever he's at. And he's been Rightfully so. He's been balling out
He's going
in
to be
terms of
playing more though
he's gonna be
without
playing
Anthony
more.
Davis. Yeah,
Yeah,
because what's
and
going to happen now is like they're going to have to put somebody else down there, so they might play Thomas Bryant more,
yeah, Thomas Bryant.
play him more and stuff like that. But like with that
They
second
could
team,
also run LeBron at the 4 probably if they really
oh
wanted
yeah,
to.
they really could. Yeah, I mean you could put LeBron in any position
Yeah.
and you'll be fine.
Um yeah, that's true. And it's a positionless game.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, so I'm anxious to see how that plays out. Obviously, they're right behind the Warriors in the standings. Like I don't know. As
Yeah,
my dad said, I think the Warriors will figure it out. But
sure.
to be fair, Curry's out for the next couple weeks or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
I don't know how
The
that's
West
gonna.
is in a very weird state though right
It's
now.
weird, man.
Their
It's
top three
weird.
teams are like all losing. Like the Pelicans have lost three straight. The Grizzlies lost their last game. Nuggets lost their last game. The Suns, we might be seeing a little resurrection, but I don't know
But
because
Booker,
last
if they have
couple
to rely
weeks
on Booker putting up 58, then they're in trouble. If that's what it takes for them to barely
they're in
get wins.
trouble. They're in trouble. Yes, I agree with you. They're in trouble if that's what you need to win games. But like
Yeah.
I don't know. They were number one in the West for a bit, and now they're number four. They dropped down because people are like, "Oh, they stink," which I would agree because they weren't performing well. But they
No,
won
for
two
sure.
straight. The Kings are still top five in the West. I love it.
Love to see it.
Trailblazers are number six. So the league is right now, and it's like I guess you could say forming state, where it's just like
Yeah.
once All Star break comes, we'll probably have better
I
like
want to see where the Kings are
knowledge.
at. Yeah, come that time. I want to see how that's.
I
I
feel
mean,
like the Kings could take the number four spot, possibly the number three spot if they
you
wanted to.
think I still I see them more of like finishing. If I were to guess, I think they'll finish between. I think they'll finish between 6 and 10. I think
But
the
look,
Clippers are on the. I think the Clippers are on the come up. This
yeah,
look, I'm talking regular. I'm not talking about playoff time because the Clippers are, the Clippers playoff time that we can't rely on them. I think the Clippers are gonna over. I think the Clippers will get to a top 5 seed, and I think the Warriors are gonna figure it out somehow that they'll end up being around the 6 seed. And look, the Suns could fall out too. So I'm rooting for the Kings. I hope they keep it up, but I don't know. I don't know if I could see them being the top 5 seed come All Star weekend.
sure, I get it. I get it. But
Mhm.
before we get out of here, man, which has been an absolute beautiful episode,
Been great, man.
especially with your dad, man. That's awesome.
Yes,
Definitely got
sir.
to
Yes,
get him
sir.
back on here. Definitely got to get another special guest on here. But how do you feel confident about the last thing? Just last thing, the
Yeah.
Warriors, man. How do you feel confident about them for the next couple weeks?
Okay. I'd be a little worried if I'm the Warriors without Curry because Curry's in hooping and they're still below 500. But
Yeah.
I Jordan Poole is averaging like 27 a game when he starts, right? So I think he's going to come into that role. He's not going to be Steph Curry, but I think he's going to be able to handle the load in the sense it's not like they're going to lose 10 in a row.
Uh,
I think if I'm the Warriors, if I'm hovering 500, if I'm 500 when Curry comes back, I'd be a good spot with that. I think if
that's
they're
fair.
because
That's
right now they're
fair.
sitting at 2 games below 500. If they can
Yep.
somehow, but I think Curry's out like a month, right?
Yeah, close to a
Roughly a
month.
month. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think if they can get it to a place where they're you know, at 500, or hopefully better, but if they're at 500, I think they'll be
Yeah.
fine. And once we'll see it once playoffs start, teams are really going to be like. I'm not going to say teams aren't trying, but like it's a whole other atmosphere. Teams really buckle down on their game plans. So
Yeah.
I'm not worried. I'm a little worried in the sense I want to see. I don't know how the Warriors are going to be without Steph Curry, but I think Jordan Poole will carry that load offensively. Defensively, he's a liability. So that's my takes on the Warriors. Again, I'm not hitting the panic button yet, but this is a pretty bad time for Steph Curry to go down.
Yeah, true, very true. For me, my initial reaction was I almost wrote him off.
Oh,
I was
really?
like, yeah, kiss your season goodbye. But injury is not that bad. Like I was pretty hard. I'm harsh on the Warriors because I've always living in California when like Curry started to get big and all that stuff. I used to have a bunch of Warrior fans in my face. But but I love my people in Cali though. But I would say yes, I would be happy, especially in their case, if they do keep above 500. But this
For
is
sure.
really gonna show their team. Like
Yeah.
this is really gonna show like what it is, how that team is working together. Because I think the only thing that was working for the Warriors the whole season so far has been Curry, and
Curry,
he's
yeah.
been playing lights out. I give
Hmm.
it to him. He's been playing like an MVP,
For
but
sure.
without him now, he's got that shoulder injury. I don't know how he's going to be coming back because I think that was his right shoulder, which
Yeah. Which is a shooting arm.
that might cause
Yeah.
things. It may not because he's the greatest shooter of all time, so he might get out of that funk. He might be
Yeah.
perfectly fine, but they're right now playing against the Raptors. They're up, but
Yeah,
you know they you just these next couple weeks, man, they gotta prove it.
yeah,
They
for
gotta
sure.
prove it that they're that Warrior team still. Because if they don't,
They're in
if
big
they don't
trouble.
get to 500, I'm telling you right now, Brian, if they don't get to 500 during this time frame without Curry, I'm not confident enough of them. If not that they won't make the playoffs, maybe not. I don't know because it's so weird because the
Yeah.
West is very very close. But I'm not
Yeah.
confident enough they can go far in the playoffs if
Oh
they
no.
cannot win without Curry.
Because if they get matched up, I think with Memphis again, those fresh legs, Memphis. I like what's going on over there. I think that would be if they because if they're the 10 seed and they have that plan and they get matched up with the even the Pelicans, like yikes, man. I don't know. If I'm them, I'm trying to avoid those teams right now. If they
Curry
get
would
matched, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
What are you
Curry
saying?
would have to play like mass Kyrie, mass
35 a
LeBron.
game.
Like
Yeah.
he's gonna, yeah. If that happens, man, especially if they don't get to 500 without him, you know, it's not like I think without Curry on the Warriors, I don't think they play 500 ball. But
Hmm.
like at this point, you have to prove it. You have to prove y'all's worth because there's nothing different from your guys' team from last year from winning the finals. There's nothing different. So
Yeah,
you
no,
guys
for
should
sure.
be good. You guys shouldn't be bad.
Yeah,
Like,
I
yes, Curry
mean,
was carry y'all's load, but like y'all shouldn't be this bad.
no, yeah, for sure. I think it's obviously, they did lose a couple role players, Gary Payton, Otto Porter. But yeah, I mean, they shouldn't be, regardless, they should not. They shouldn't be this bad. And I'm going to continue saying, I think they got to start Poole over Clay. Um, I think Jordan Poole is
You don't think they
undoubtedly
start him at
better.
point guard and then put Clay at the two?
I'm saying when Curry comes back.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
but no, yeah, in terms of, I think it's hands down Jordan Poole is going to start when Curry's out. But
oh
when
yeah.
Curry comes back, I think they got to start Poole. I really do. Especially if Poole balls out when Curry is out with this injury. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that Jordan Poole should start over Clay because then Clay can just provide shooting and defense off the bench. So I don't think that would be a terrible idea.
That's true. That's true. Well, man, hey, great episode, man.
Great
This was
episode,
awesome,
man.
man. This was awesome,
Had
man.
a
We
blast.
definitely a good little behind the scenes thing. We're doing this on Zoom again
Hmm.
because we're back home for the
Winter break.
holidays I'm actually in my place here in
Still in
Morgantown still.
Morgantown.
I'm still in Morgantown. I go back home on Tuesday.
Safe travels, my
Um
man.
so thank you. But
Of course, of course.
Brian's back home in Jersey chilling,
Back in the
you know,
201.
back in the 201. I'm still here in the I think it's the
304.
304. Yeah. So, but hey, man, this episode was great. I love it. We still got a lot of great more content coming.
For sure,
This,
for sure.
this is awesome, man. This adding your dad to it. Your dad, hey, man, give him my props, man.
Hey,
Give
for
him
sure,
my
man. He had a
props.
blast, man. I already know he's gonna be
Yes.
listening to this the second it comes out.
Yes, of
Um,
course. Tell him he made this show a little bit better today. Like he
yeah,
made it
I
better
hopefully we get
today.
more listens, man. I know
Oh, of course.
people around my town know that he really knows what he's talking about. And before I forget, I want to say, make sure everybody checks out our Instagram at hoopin.mb.
Yes.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Hoopin with Mike and Brian, and follow our Twitter, Hoopin_MB.
Yeah, yeah.
And we
And
got more content coming soon, as Mike said.
more content coming. We're just gonna keep it going, keep it knocking, and doing our thing because man, we got very high praises for this podcast, and
For sure.
we're gonna keep doing our thing. So, Brian, any last words?
Hey, hope everyone has a great Merry Christmas. Spend time with your families. Don't
Yes.
take that time for granted. As I get
Nope.
older, I see that I took these times for granted when I was younger, just because
Nope.
we're continually in and out of the house with college and whatnot. So, everyone just spend time with your families, tell them how much you love them, give them a nice hug, maybe even take them out to dinner. But
Damn
yeah,
right.
you know what I'm saying? So other than that, hope everyone has great holidays, happy new year, and I'm sure we'll have another episode on in the next couple of days. So stay tuned.
Yep. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. And for me, hey, happy holidays. I want to give one little special shout out, Brian.
Yeah, go
Um,
for it.
it's to my girl. She went out to boot camp serving in the
Uh-huh.
military. So I'd give a nice little special shout out. I
For
know
sure.
she probably won't
Respect to
hear
everything she's
this.
doing over there.
Yeah, so respect. We love our military forces
For
in
sure.
this podcast. We support. My dad was an Air Force vet, so
Mhm.
I just want to give a special shout out um, to Mackenzie. You're doing your thing. I'm proud of you. Um, and can't wait to see you soon. She's the best air lady I know. So she's gonna be the best, man.
We'll get
So
her on an episode when she comes home.
yeah, hopefully she don't know anything, but she'll do something. But yeah, other than that, happy holidays, everybody. Spend time with your loved ones. Give your loved ones the most attention, the best attention, and just enjoy it, man. This is the best.
Sure.
This is my favorite holidays. This is my favorite season. Even though yes, it's cold as the word I cannot say, but it's
It is
cold.
cold.
It is very, very cold, especially I know you're in Jersey, so it's
Yeah,
really,
it's
really
cold,
cold.
man.
But hey man, just enjoy your holidays.
For sure, man.
Everybody enjoy your holidays. And just tune in, man. We're still going up. There's no
For
down.
sure.
There's no settling. There's nothing. We going up. So
Going on, man.
yeah. But thanks again for everybody listening.
Appreciate all the love.
Tune in for next episode and stay updated on all our socials: Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Stay updated. Stay tuned, and just remember, just to keep on hooping.